Well, first of all, thanks everyone for being here. And as I like to start off, my name is Bill Oden. I'm a sinner saved by grace. So anything that I come up with or talk about is always guided by that. And if we're talking to our educators, if we put this back in our schools, we'll see a huge change in our society today. So I was looking last night, and I know how many people think they have an idea of what critical race theory is about. Okay. How many people have an idea of where the founding of critical race theory comes from? Okay, let me read you something. Wikipedia, and I printed out 9 pages, and my wife looked at me, she said, "You are not reading that." No, I'm not. So I'm just going to read one paragraph. In sociology and political philosophy, critical theory means the Western Marxist philosophy of the Frankfurt School, developed in Germany in the 1930s, and drawing on the ideas of Karl Marx and Sigmund Freud. Through a critical theory or critical social theory may have similar elements of thought, capitalization of critical theory means capital C, capital T, as if it were a proper noun, stresses the intellectual lineage specific to the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School, of course, was Frankfurt, Germany, where they came up with all these weird and crazy thoughts and Marxism. So as Mark Levine wrote the book about Marxism, you see where that is invading our society. And then one other one, it talks about releasing people from their subservience. As you know, Karl Marx came up with the idea of the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, the haves and the have-nots. Critical race theory is teaching our kids that because of the color of your skin, you're either an oppressor or you're being oppressed. That's the basic lineage. Now you'll have the academics, as Bill talked about, that he listened to USC, that spout all these wonderful things. The bottom line is if you have white skin, you are an oppressor. If you don't have white skin, you are the oppressed. I'm going to give you a quick story about myself. I've been around for a few years, as you can tell by the color of the mustache and the hair. Probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I was going through some pictures. And I found a picture of a little guy about that tall with 3 other black men, along with my father. And I asked my brother, I said, "What's that?" My brother lives in Australia. He's been there since 1970. I sent a copy to him and said, "What's this?" He said, "You don't know who that is you're with?" I said, "No." He says, "One guy is Jackie Robinson. The other guy is the first black Texas Ranger, law enforcement. I tell people I'm a damn Yankee. Uncle Sam dropped me off at Shaw Air Force Base. After 23 years, I decided to stay here in South Carolina. That group was called the Life Builders Club. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. And my father, along with other black men at the YMCA, had a thing called the Life Builders Club to show us, as young kids, I probably was about 5 or 6 years old, that nothing holds us back but ourselves. So what we need to be teaching in our school system is not, now I don't know if you have heard some of the stories that have come out. You'll never see this on mainstream media. You have to look at other media to find out, where school teachers are actually separating their classrooms by race, where they'll have the white kids on one side and everybody else on the other side. Some teachers even go so far as to tell the white kids, "You need to apologize because you have white privilege." So once again, if they go back to this, what did God do? He created one human race from two people, not separate people. He created all of us in his image. So when you tell your kids that they have to be ashamed of themselves because of their skin color, you're telling them that God made a mistake when he created them. So make no doubt about it. If you look through our history, like I said, I have a few gray hairs. I grew up, I was born, I can tell you when, born in 1950, 51. But coming forward, I grew up through that area of race relations. Like I said, I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. Not too far from where I live, we had a cross burning in an open lot. So you think, Indianapolis, really? Yes, but that didn't affect us. That didn't affect how we were raised. I was talking with the wife the other day, and please, I'm not bragging, but thanks to God and Uncle Sam, I've been around the world, almost every continent. Sometimes I wanted to go, sometimes I didn't want to go. I spent a lot more time in the Middle East than I ever thought I would ever spend over there in Saudi Arabia. And I would guarantee you, if anybody in the military has been around the world, if you've traveled around the world, there's no other country in this world as great as the United States of America. Now, sometimes I will admit I do feel bad, because I was in Saudi Arabia on a bus driver from some other country besides Saudi Arabia, because everybody over there, if you're part of the royal family, you have all the money. Everybody else works for you. You think you're subservient here, go over there. But what really I'm saying, I kind of get embarrassed, because this guy can speak 5 languages. And he's a bus driver from some little podunk country in the world. But just to say that we have a lot to go. But once again, if we teach our kids, now look at the people who are telling our kids this, who are telling us this. These are folks who went to college in the 60s and 70s, who were indoctrinated back then. Now they are our leaders that we have in DC and across the country today. So what do you think is going to look like 20, 25 years from now if we allow what's going on in our school system to continue? What will those people be like who have been indoctrinated now? We will no longer be the United States of America. We'll become the Soviet Union of America, because we'll become a Marxist and communist country, because that's what's being indoctrinated into our kids today. And I use this scenario, and let me see if I can find a piece of paper. Here's a piece of paper. I want somebody to tell me, have you ever seen a white person? How many people seen a white person? Man, y'all didn't fall for it. Because you saw me pick up the piece of paper, because that's a white person. You don't see any of those. Now, how many people have seen a black person? Now, I have to admit, I have seen some people that are pretty close. But what I'm saying is this. First of all, I said we were all created in God's image. If we look outside, what do we see? Colors. The most beautiful flowers in the springtime. So what does God like? Colors. That's why we all have different skin color, because he doesn't want his image to all look alike. We are one race, that's the human race. We are one blood. Because if we weren't, we couldn't share blood with each other. We couldn't share organs with each other. So that means that we all are one race, once again, created in the image of God. So critical race theory, as I said, basically is teaching our kids that because of the color of your skin, you're either an oppressor or you are oppressed. I don't feel like I'm oppressed at all. Think about this. Look at the people who are telling you this. Look at the people who are telling our black kids, I would say this, Americans of African descent, because there's very few of us who actually came from Africa. But all of us in this room have ancestry from some other country. But we share also one thing, we are all Americans. When I wore that uniform for 23 years, I defended the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign, and domestic. Unfortunately, we need to look at defending our country against domestic terrorists because they're within us. If folks who have lived a while, listen to Nikita Khrushchev said this way back in the day, we will not overthrow you from the outside. We will overthrow you from the inside. Guess what they're doing now? They're overthrowing our country from the inside because they have come in, taught our kids when they were little, taught our kids when they were in college, and now those same kids are running our country about communism and socialism is such a wonderful thing. And now they're overthrowing us, even though Nikita Khrushchev is gone, they're still trying to overthrow us from the inside. So as you have grandkids, if you have kids in school, if you're in school, and you hear any of this being taught in your schools, you step up, you talk to your school boards, and as I don't know who said it, but support if you're GOP, don't care what party you are, support your party and run for positions on these school boards to overturn these school boards because there's some crazy stuff going on out there that we don't want. I have grandkids. I don't want my grandkids, any of this stuff happening to them. So one daughter homeschools, my son homeschools, the other daughter sends her kids to public school. But what they're trying to teach and indoctrinate is pure Marxism. Under any other word, and you'll get pushback from it. They'll tell you, oh, you're just saying that because you're white. Well, guess what? I'm not. So I'm saying that because I've seen it, I've lived it. And I understand that we came from racist roots, that's what they try to tell you. The 1619 Project. How many folks have heard of that? They're trying to rewrite our history. When did we actually become a nation? So guess what would happen in 1619? We weren't a nation, were we? Who was in charge? English. Who should we blame for racism and slavery and stuff in the United States? The English. Blame the Queen. And I say this because, and I'm not going to mention his name because he would shoot me, but I had breakfast with a gentleman who happened to be in the British Navy, and he said that. He said, you should blame us. We're the ones who were running the country back then. I said, hey, I think I'm going to use that in my next speech. So the people who are trying to rewrite our history, that's the other thing that communism, Marxism, they do. If you can rewrite your country's history, you can destroy your history. You could tear down statues, regardless if they're of a Confederate person who owned slaves, or if there's somebody who freed the slaves and emancipated the slaves. If you can destroy that history, then your kids will only learn what they're being taught in schools. So until we go back, I looked at some of the bills they have in there, is to teach American history like American history was. We have some very bad stuff in our history. We were bad people. I mean, we did all kind of crazy stuff, all the way up. But now, I don't think I know, I don't have to think. There's no other country in the world where I want to raise my kids and my grandkids because they have more opportunity in this country than they have anywhere in the world. Now just think about the people who are telling you that we are oppressed. LeBron James, how much money does he have? How many guards does he have protecting him? What kind of wall does he have around his house? Oh, Oprah Winfrey. We're living in the most racist country in the world. How many billions of dollars do you have, Oprah? And how did you get that? So look at the people who are trying to tell us, and I'm talking about us, being black Americans, that we are oppressed. These are the millionaires, the billionaires, the actors, the professional football players, all these other folks who will kneel at our national anthem when they have never served a day in the military of their life. And the only reason why they have the ability to have that money is because they have a physical ability that they can lose in a minute. Like who was that was talking about they were playing football and blew their knees out, had knee problems? So just like that, their fame and stuff disappears. But we as Americans stand forever. Folks who have served in the military stand forever. Because those are the true heroes. The folks with the thin blue line that stand out there and defend against the guys who are going to come in and steal, kill, or do something to your family. They're now being demonized because they're doing their job. I would never, ever think, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this because it's being broadcasted, I would never, ever think I would live in a country that would idolize a known criminal and make a statue of a known criminal. Sure, he was killed. He was killed by a police officer who did something he shouldn't have done. But this man does not deserve to be treated as a hero or as a saint. None of us are saints. Like I said, I'm a sinner saved by grace. But when we live in a country that starts to do that and then demonize the people who are protecting you every day and putting their lives on the line every day. I'm a state constable, so I get to work with law enforcement around the state. When they leave the house, they never know if they're coming back home. On a traffic stop, well, a traffic stop is easy. That's just, you never know when you stop a car on the highway or in the city what that person driving the car is going to do. Only they know what they're going to do. The law enforcement officer has no idea. So he can't walk up to the car with his gun drawn because, again, he'll be, oh, look at that, that's a racist cop. He just pulled that person over. Had one of my friends that I had breakfast with, same guy, thought he was a law enforcement officer down in Florida. Said one of his partners pulled over a car with surfboards on the top. The car had 4 kids in it, and a woman was driving it. He walked up to the car, and the woman shot him in the chest. And when they arrested her, they asked her why. She had been abused by her husband. Her husband told her if she came home with another ticket, he was going to kill her. So instead of her going home and telling her husband she had another ticket, she killed the cop. See, those things we can never think about. A cop would never, ever think that a woman with 3 kids with surfboards on the top would be a danger to his life. The other thing, I said I like to get in trouble about stuff. Look around at all the things that happen. Every once in a while you have 1 or 2. But let me ask this question. How many of y'all feel that when you walk out of the house, do you feel unsafe? If you're unsafe, you're unsafe when you walk out of the house. How many of you folks driving a car down the road feel that because you're driving the car, you're going to get shot if you're pulled over by a cop? No? Okay, now if you ask LeBron James, every black person in the country feels unsafe every time they walk out their door. I don't. I don't. The people I talk to don't. I don't know my brother here. Do you feel unsafe, man?
I feel great.
There you go. The only reason I use him because we know each other. So think about that. Our society, how many people have seen the movie Gaslight? It's an old movie. It was a stage play. My wife decided to watch that. And I'm going somewhere with this. Gaslight was an old movie, and it was about a guy who married this young woman. They lived in England when they used gas lights for their lighting systems. So what he would do to make her think she was going crazy, he would sneak back in the house, like he's going out, he'd sneak back in the house and turn the lights down. And when she complained, I see the lights going down, he'd come back, what's wrong with you? There's nothing going on. He would do crazy stuff like give her a brooch, supposed to be his mother's, and then she would look for it in the purse that wasn't there. And so he said, well, I gave it to you, what'd you do with it? And all kind of stuff like that. Have y'all heard the term gaslighting? Yeah. That's where it came from. So we are being gaslighted by the folks running our country. They're making you believe that you're seeing stuff that's not happening. And when you question it and ask yourself, am I going crazy? Yes, you're going crazy. Just do that. But you're not. You're not going crazy. You're being lied to. Propaganda, and I'll end on this. How many people in the room, I'm not allowed to take surveys, believe everything you see on mainstream media? No, I can't believe that. They wouldn't lie to us. But also for military. when we would go into other countries back in the day, they had special folks called psych ops. Their job was to drop pamphlets, to overtake radio stations and overtake broadcasts and stuff like that. This was being good side to let the folks know we are the good guys. We're getting ready to come in and blow your place up. So y'all better go somewhere, because we're going to take out the bad guys. But if you watch mainstream media, and my wife told me we need to start watching again. I said, I have to. I don't want to see that mess. But if you watch it across every news media, every network, and almost every station, the same words are being used. That means there's a script. There's a script that they're using. There's a script that people running this country are telling them to use. And that script is using and is working. Because also, from Russia, they said if you tell a lie often enough and put enough emphasis behind it, when you tell the truth, the people will not believe it. Can we see that happening in our country today? Yes. So that was a long way around to talk about critical race theory and the 1619 Project. You need to talk not only to your legislatures, because we see there's a bill, 4343, is one of the ones that's pushing back on all of that. That's part of that pushback, to get that out of our school systems, to hold our folks that represent us. As you see, we are not a democracy. We are a representative republic. The people who work in Washington, D.C., they don't understand this, but they work for us. And you know how you make them understand this? Bring them back home and send somebody else up there to vote them out. Thank y'all so much. I will end with this, and I always have to end with this, that we are not fighting only a physical war, but we are fighting a spiritual war. If you don't believe it, watch TV, mainstream media sometime, and look at the eyes of the people that are talking, who are spewing this hatred and all the stuff that's going on. Just look at them and you can almost see a demonic presence. We don't like to talk about that now very much in churches. Don't like to talk about demons. The churches don't like to talk about that, but guess what? Satan loves you not to talk about that. Satan also loves the fact that you don't believe in him. But guess who he believes in? Our God and our Lord and Savior. Thank y'all, and thanks for having me.
Bill Oden, folks, you can't say much more than that. Bill Taylor would like to add a short postscript. So, Colonel, you did great. Thank you. While you were talking, this is breaking news. While you were talking, I texted Representative Merle Smith, Chairman Merle Smith, the House Ways and Means.
He happens to be my representative.
Yes. And I said, Merle, budget question. Did the Senate's critical race theory proviso stick in the budget? Remember, they've been negotiating the last 2 days. I said, we need to know. That proviso, by the way, in a budget has the force of law for 1 year if it's approved by the legislature, okay? That's a sneaky way we get in policy sometimes that we can't get through the committee process. It's like sticking a piece of chewing gum on something, go, oh, we got it in. But it's only good for 1 year, right? His answer, you ready?
Yes.
Ready. He said, yes, sir, it's in the budget. But there's more to the story, he says. The senators tried to take it out, and I wouldn't let them.
All right.
We got it in the budget. There we go. So what that means is that basically, similar to theirs is not, a proviso is not eloquently written, trust me, and it's not as thorough as a piece of legislation. But the essence is, it will be in the budget. I know the governor's all about you know, not vetoing that. He's all in support of blocking this. So we'll pass it out of the House on Monday, the Senate on Monday, and it'll go to